If your accountant has ever told you to cut back on professional development or slash your teacher appreciation budget or your staff development budget just so you could stay afloat, or has told you, hey, you probably can't go invest in that program, please listen. The problem is not that you're spending too much money on your people or yourself or your investment or your support system. It's that your school has invisible money leaks that are draining your profit, leaks that no spreadsheet will ever catch or accountant. So I created the 6 money leaks of schools that show you the 6 core areas that schools lose money every single month without realizing it. If you close even one of them, your profits will start to soar without sacrificing your team. Go get it now and stop blaming the things that are actually building your school.
Welcome to the Schools of Excellence podcast, where we transform everyday leadership struggles into powerful legacies that impact generations. I'm your host, Chanie Wilschanski, a 20-year veteran of school leadership who has helped hundreds of school leaders achieve what many thought was impossible through our signature programs, School Leadership HQ and Enrollment Engine. With our battle-tested frameworks and blueprints, leaders have achieved 90% parent retention, 50% less staff turnover, 15% improved profit margins, and increased enrollment by 25%. My mission is simple: to revolutionize school leadership by elevating the skills, the habits, and mindset of passionate leaders ready to create lasting change. Join me as we build your legacy of excellence, one transformative conversation at a time. Welcome back to the Schools of Excellence podcast. I'm really excited to be here today. For those of you that have followed the show for a while, you know that I don't usually have guests on. I typically run a solo show because I always very protective of our listeners' time, our audience's time, and what they're choosing to really consume and listen to from a content perspective. So when I have a guest on, it's very intentional, very thought out, and something that I believe will really bring a tremendous amount of value to whoever's listening. So I'm really honored to have a longtime friend of Schools of Excellence and of myself. Kathy Ligon is here from Hinge Advisors. Kathy, thank you so much for being here today.
I'm so happy to join you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so it's funny because I was actually thinking before the interview, I was like, when did we first meet? I think it was in 2017 or 2018, somewhere around that time. So it's been a while. So, and you recently launched a couple of months ago your book Framework. And so I'd love really just to get started even, why did you write this book, Kathy? You've been in this industry for so long. Why now? Why this book?
Well, thank you, first of all, for giving me the platform to talk about the book. I really appreciate that. And the book was something that lived in my head for many, many, many years. And you know that feeling as an entrepreneur when something's more painful to keep in your head than to do. It became that for me, that this was part of communicating what I found in my 39-year history now in the early education space was beneficial to emerging leaders and emerging business owners in understanding how to simply break down the key components of their business and financial picture. So it got more painful to hold in. The second thing that was the catalyst was that we launched a nonprofit, which was also a very difficult thing that I could no longer keep inside of me. And we launched a nonprofit last July called Boost. And the mission of Boost, very quickly, is to support the home and health crisis needs of our early education teacher community. I saw many, many examples of teachers who did okay until there was a crisis event, and that event financially forced them out of the classroom, disrupting children and families and the rest of the school. So our goal is to help teachers stay in the classroom. And since last July, we've raised about $300,000. We've supported a couple of hundred teachers, deployed all of that money in helping them stay in the classroom. So that was the reason for the book.
Yes. Great answer. My question whenever I have someone on who has taken time out of their day-to-day responsibilities, life, just their own like mission and values, and taking the time to write a book. It's not an easy feat. I wrote one. I'm still haven't launched it in the world, but I finished my manuscript, and I know the amount of time that it takes. And so when you look at the layout of the book, the structure, the chapters, and what you chose to put in there, because obviously you put a lot in there, but then most of it gets edited out until what stays. So what are let's start with 2 or 3 of the essential components in the book that made it to the final cut because it's so important?
Yeah, thank you for that. And just realizing I failed to make the complete link between Boost and the book. The reason Boost prompted me to write the book is that all of the proceeds go to Boost. So you can find the book on Amazon. I'll make a shameless plug here.
Yes, we'll put the link in the show notes.
The 5 pillars of purpose-driven profit. And I'd like to explain what I mean by that, if that's okay, and then also why the 5 pillars are important to me. I feel like it's critical for business owners and managers and leaders to understand that you can't have profit without purpose. You can't have purpose without profit. You can't have money without mission. You can't have mission without money. So not only are those concepts not at odds with each other, which is something that we commonly think about, they're absolutely necessary for each other. So I say to business owners a lot, there is no possible way for you to provide the purpose or mission that you got in this industry for without the money or the profit. They are absolutely necessary for each other, and not just for the operation of the business and the company, but also for your own personal well-being. You must thrive personally before you can help others thrive. There's no way, if you're waking up in the middle of the night worried about the payroll and the mortgage, that you can also show up to serve the children, families, and teams that deserve all of you. And it's just not possible. You might think you're doing something noble, but it's not possible. So shifting over to the idea of the 5 pillars of purpose-driven profit, I found early in my years, I was learning how to lead directors, first directors, then business owners, and later in my career, but first directors, in understanding what they could actually do on a day-to-day basis that would drive profit, what was important. And I couldn't give them a piece of paper of a financial statement. I watched their eyes glaze over and it would go in the bin in the back. They had no idea what it meant. They were often bonused on it, and it made no sense. They couldn't understand the link between action and reward, or even how that, not just for them, but for the children. So what I came up with was a concept that if they focused on 5 key areas, these are my 5 pillars, then those 5 pillars would get them 95% of the way toward financial health. In my whole career, I think I've seen one owner that had an issue in another category that was seriously impacting her business, and that was food. She was spending way too much on food. But one time in 39 years. So in my experience, all financial health issues revolve around these 5. The better news is that only 2 of those need to be thought about every single day. So there's a big focus on 2 of the 5. 3 of the 5 you can think about a couple of times a year. So just to name those, and then I'm happy to dive into any of those that you like. Those are the first 3, create the revenue picture, and those are occupancy, tuition rates, and discounts. So the 3 of those work together to create the financial picture. And there's some real hidden dangers in there that I like to point out to people. And then the last 2 are the 2 largest expenses, which are staff costs and your facility costs, which it comes in the form of either rent or a mortgage payment. So once I train around what those should look like and what strategies can be employed to put those in healthy ranges, then I found that it felt so much more manageable, and I saw leaders begin to be able to focus on what was important, which was what's happening in the classroom, if they were armed with a simple way to manage the business.
I want to actually go back to the thing that you had said right when I had asked you the question about there's no money, there's no mission, and no purpose, you can't have profit, and kind of how it all works together. You've been in the industry for almost 4 decades. And so you've seen the pendulum move in so many different directions. You've been through economic highs, economic lows, recessions, contractions, like all these different parts of how the economy ebbs and flows, different people in leadership, et cetera. And so I'd love if you could take us even back to some of those early days of your work inside of this industry. What has been feeding the narrative of this loftiness or this heroism of like, I should do it just for this and not for money, or I don't need profit? And what feeds that, Kathy, from your perspective?
Yeah, really great question. What I would have to say is the thing that has kept me in this industry for almost 4 decades. That was startling when you said.
I know, right? Well, you said how many years. I'm like, that's
that. Yeah. So I regularly now tell people both how long I've been in the industry and how old I am, because I'm both of those things and all the gray hairs. Yes. But what feeds that, in my opinion, is that this industry attracts people who are mission and purpose driven. I could count on one hand in my whole career the number of people that got into the industry primarily to make money. Now, I want you to make money. You need to make money and you deserve to make money, but this industry doesn't attract people whose primary purpose is to make money. They would go somewhere else, right? Because it's a challenging business. And so because of that, I think we have a community of givers and caregivers and nurturers. And those people are amazing, and we could not do without them in this industry. And at the same time, I've made it my mission to be their advocate and really push hard on, okay, but there's a balance between your mission and sacrifice, and it doesn't work. Not only do you not have to do it, it doesn't work. So it's a hard lesson for a nurturer to begin to build boundaries around their self-care and the financial health of their organization. That's hard work for nurturer caregivers. So that's why I've made this my life purpose.
Yeah. Oh, I love what you said, the difference between mission and sacrifice. I love that you said you're proud of how long you've been in the industry and your age, because again, when we're in that chapter, and God willing, I will get to that chapter in my life, there's so much wisdom and experience and legacy work to share. And so I actually would love to hear how you define the sacrifice and why that's not the same as mission, because I do think they get convoluted very, very often, especially for young aspirational leaders.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I completely, because I'm not completely in the nurturer caregiver category. So I'm not sure that I understand completely. And I don't need to. They don't need to understand my drive for them to also be financially healthy. So you probably would know. What do you think?
What do I think? What the definition of sacrifice is?
Yeah. What do you see?
So what I see when it comes to sacrifice is the overgiving to the point of collapse. And so it's the over-functioning, over-giving, over-generosity, over-kindness, over-forgiving, giving and giving like a blank check without any boundaries. It's like, forgiving again, broken promises, just all of these things of overextending themselves until they collapse. They can't anymore. And that's when they realize they've made all the sacrifices without the mission and the boundaries. So that's what I see.
Thank you for adding that to my new language bank, because I think that was a beautiful description of the very well-intended, kind people that we have the pleasure to work with, who again, and I know that it's part of your purpose to help them balance a little better. It's also mine, but I think you just captured that beautifully.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's dive into actually one of the parts of the framework that when I was reading the book, I was like, oh, this is so interesting, just the perspective. I actually want to talk about the other two parts, the staffing and the facility. So let's talk about the staffing piece, because every single person has their hot take on staffing, whether that's culture or payroll or bonuses or teacher discounts or you name it. So I would love to hear Kathy's take on staffing.
Yeah, this is such a rich topic.
Yeah, exactly.
I will give some highlights because you know that we could focus hours just on staffing.
Yeah, exactly.
It is the most complicated, difficult, complex part of the work that we do, right? So the first thing I like to say is don't even bother to try to cost control your way into healthy staffing without creating the culture and the leadership piece first.
Can you just repeat that? I need you to repeat that. Don't cost. I need you to repeat that, please.
Yeah, well, there's several things, but don't try to cost control your way into financial health.
Yes.
There are two key things that have to be done first. And as it relates to staffing, you have to create the culture and the leadership piece first. We have been talking about this for 40 years. This is not new. Now, COVID exacerbated it, right? So we're in a different world where we're having teams come to us less experienced and less educated. And that has required new strategies to build staff and to create career paths and really to understand where they are emotionally. Where are they emotionally when they come to us? Because it's completely different than it was before COVID. And we can either just complain about it or we can meet them where they are. You know, which one do you want to do? Do you want to be successful or do you want to beat your head against the wall, really? But so first of all, before I speak about managing staff costs, I have to add in that you will never be able to do it without creating the culture and the leadership piece first and really working on retention. So a big part of cost management is minimizing. So really difficult. I see amazing companies also struggle with turnover. Their turnover is higher than it was before COVID, and they're doing great things toward culture, training, and leadership. But so that's difficult, and it's not going to go away, but it is so expensive. Is part of your cost management. So I tell you what I see. Before COVID, I said a lot of things that are still true, but they're not the most important thing. So strategies for me pre-COVID are that I rarely see a problem if a school's overspending in staff costs. I rarely see that the problem is the pay rate. So I get a lot of owners say, how much can I pay this person? I don't know because it's area specific, and I want you to be able to pay them as much as you possibly can because we'll never pay them enough to actually reward them for the work that they're doing. And so I don't know the answer to that. But typically before COVID, the problem was the number of hours and not managing them well. So I would say to people, don't ignore the power of the 15 minutes that you might bring someone in a little later or allow them to go home. So before COVID, I would say, send people home. That was my language. Send people home and protect your core staff. I do not say that anymore. You don't have to, quote, send people home. One thing I give COVID credit for and love about this new workforce is they value their work-life balance so strongly that if you train them to know when someone can go home, when the ratio is at the place where one person can help support with logistics and cleanup and planning, but then go home early, they can't wait. And so maybe you can notice, but you can't be everywhere all the time. So if you help your teachers understand, when we're down to 7 students in this classroom, one of you stick your head out the door or call me and say, hey, I'm out. Now that, whatever it is, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, hour, really adds up. So that's my best cost control strategy, but I have a more important strategy now. The issue now is not usually in cost management, it's in incorrect tuition rates, right? So if we are not charging the actual cost of care, I talk a lot about cost of care in the book, then no amount of cost control is ever going to get you there. And so that plays into your entire revenue stream. Are you fully occupied? And also, that is the most important of the 5 pillars. If you're not, I say to people, if you're not fully occupied, stop reading after this first chapter and do that, because no amount of cost control will ever get you to financial health if you don't have the correct occupancy in your school. Then if you're not charging the right tuition rate or you're discounting too much, which is my hidden danger, then you don't have a sufficient revenue stream to balance what is absolutely necessary to pay the staff. Now, if you're over 70 or 80% occupancy and you're still struggling, then probably you're not charging enough for what you're providing. Yeah. And we're living in fear a lot of the tuition rate. We got to call our competitors, which is insane, people.
Why? Why is it?
We can't do that. First of all, are they actual competitors? Are they, just because they're in your market does not make them a competitor. Are they actually a competitor? Are they doing? I hope the answer to this is no. You better be the best. But are they doing work as good as you? Are they providing as much in a building that's as great as yours? If the answer is no, you are the market leader. You set the rate. You don't live in fear of what will happen with parents. And frankly, you might get to the point where some parents will not be able to tolerate your tuition rate. And I'm sad about that. And at the same time, it can't be the reason that you go down and can't serve anyone. So as you can tell, I get a little off on a tangent about it because I feel very passionate about it. But that was a long answer to your short question about staff costs.
No, it's so good. And there's so many little pieces here of what you said. And I hope people go back and re-listen of just the one thing that I want to pull out from what you shared was this concept of calling competitors or doing secret shopping or whatever it is, before internally looking at ourselves and saying, are we honoring our values of excellence, of being being the best, what it means to be the best? And you become the top of the market. You become the market leader. You become the category of one, as opposed to constantly contorting yourself to fit what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's another factor that plays in, honestly, is that I feel like today's parent group is more informed than they've ever been before about what quality care and education looks like. However, they're still not 100% there. So the only reason I say that is in the absence of other information, consumers will use price as an indication of quality. So if you are less than, they immediately hear less than. And there are national providers who have huge growth going on right now. They are building brand new, bright and shiny and new markets where they never were before. And they will intentionally price $20 to $40 a week more. And they're good. They're good. I don't want to say they're not good. However, I think that there's the perception that price equals quality, and it doesn't always. And so we have to get better at charging the actual cost of care, but also communicating our unique selling points, why we're better. I think it's a good idea to know what other providers are charging, but also know why you're different. And be able to articulate that, especially on touring and on the phone. So concepts about selling, we see a lot of national groups investing heavily in now to help their teams do better at that. So I think we're doing amazing things and not always communicating them greatly.
Again, it goes back to where we started, where we overgive, we overfunction, we waiting to prove that we're worthy to charge that, as opposed to, no, right now, you can go do that. When I was talking about, price or availability, like, at Gordon Ramsay or any of these, celebrity chefs, they don't post like, we have availability tonight. No, it's a Saturday night. We've been booked out for 4 months. Like it's the messaging and positioning. Like, don't write immediate openings. If you're a boutique, selective type of school, you have to figure out other ways of positioning that. So thank you for bringing that up. I love that. I have a little bit of a personal question, actually, that I wanted to ask you. Again, going back to just the decades and experience in the industry and in general, just being an entrepreneur and running your own business. So many childcares have collapsed in the last 5 years since COVID, whether they've gone under, they've closed their doors. Many of them have not even sold. They've just closed their doors. They've just shut down and haven't even done a proper exit because they didn't even have anything set up ready for the exit or whatever it is. And their business just collapsed. So much of what you've done over the last several just years and years is constantly reinventing yourself and pivoting and looking at what is needed now to consistently stay relevant and present in the market. So I would love to hear how you have done some of those things, specifically with Hinge over the last, 4 decades. Hinge didn't start 4 decades ago, but, just when you entered becoming an entrepreneur. Yeah.
That's such a great question and funny because I was just thinking, I was on a trip yesterday and on my way home, and I was thinking about the pivots that our early education owners have made in the last 40 years. And then I thought about the pivots that Hinge has made in the last 22 years. And actually, I was creating growth systems in my former company. So it is almost 40 years for me to do that. I think as our business owners have noticed emerging patterns with, so if I look at, you mentioned our framework financial model, which can be found at frameworkbyhinge.com. It's a free benchmarking tool where an owner can put in their license capacity and their average tuition rate. It will create a benchmark for them. And that benchmark is almost 40 years old. The good thing about it is the basis of it has been stable for almost 40 years. If you look at the percent of what we spend. However, over time, there have been some slight tweaks. So they're so easy for me to identify, and they point out market changes, like you mentioned. One thing is that we used to spend a fortune on advertising that was billboards and yellow pages. It was insane. I know a lot of people I say yellow pages to my team, and they're like, you printed a book? What is that? But we shifted to more effective, less expensive, more digital online sources for marketing, and it became less expensive. At the same time, we began to see difficulty in hiring. So that started about 25 years ago. And at that time, companies were forced to improve benefits and pay. So at the same time, we began to spend less in marketing areas, but with different strategies, we also had to shift strategies to hire. Then we saw the 2009 and 10 financial crisis that required by most people's lenders and buyers and people in the financial community, more sophisticated financial systems to meet their requirements. Then we saw COVID, which required us to be very progressive with grants and how to spend those and collect those. And am I going to make it through this time period? And how do I report? And how do I play with this community? Today we're seeing, and this isn't new either, we've been talking about public pre-K and the effect on the private community for many, many years, but it is increasing. And that is causing a shift in business owners to develop relationships and strategies to follow the money trail and to be a part of the solution. Don't wake up one day in July and go, oh, the public school just started a pre-K or an after-school program, or infant care or whatever we're doing. Be a part of the solution in the community, but that takes relationship building way ahead of time. So if I look at that history, and those were very big markers I see in the 40 years, then also the Hinge team has followed some of the same shifts. So as we manage transactions for people, it used to be pretty simple. I joke to my team, but this isn't a very big joke, that we would get a transaction under contract and I would almost not hear about it until it closed. And I would go, oh, okay, well, that's nice. It's a joke now because we now have 15 people that manage transactions. There's a legal team, an advisor team, a diligence team, a financial team, and the processes that buyers have put in place with audits and quality of earnings and diligence, mountains of diligence, legal agreements has become so complex that we've had to constantly upskill our team, create processes that aren't in existence yet because we know that our clients need them. And to be honest, that's the joy of my work. And I know that every business owner feels that way. So your comment about continuing to be relevant and ahead requires constant look and vision and talking and relationship development. So I feel like the people who made it well through COVID did a couple of things. First of all, they planned well in advance. Right? They planned for the day that a catastrophic event might happen, and they knew their cut sequence and they knew their budget, and they shifted. They also had planned for cash, and some people gained that through grants. Some people had it already. And then they made so many changes immediately after. We changed policies around things like how we bill, how we communicate with parents, what food gets brought into the school, how we treat our teachers, how we put in systems for teams. I think that the last 5 years has been the most academic inflation of our industry from an operating standpoint that I've ever seen. It's been thrilling to watch. It's amazing to watch. And unfortunately, you're right that it didn't. A lot of people didn't make it through the 2009 and 10 financial downturn either, so it requires a lot of ingenuity, vision, fast shifts, and boldness, frankly. You got to try stuff and everything isn't going to work, but you have to do something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Kathy, what is a question I have not asked you yet that you want to share?
Good question. Okay, can I tell you the hidden danger?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I feel like in our industry, there's one area that I call a hidden danger that I want to just shout from the mountaintops. So that hidden danger is the danger of discounting tuition. Now, I am not saying discounting is bad. I'm saying I want you to be armed with the information to make intelligent, well thought out decisions about your discounting. And I want to lead it by saying, do not mess with your staff discounts. So staff discounts are necessary for you to be competitive, and it's a great way to hire. There are several states who now pay for the childcare of teachers, and I want business owners to be an advocate of that. It's beautiful. So the teacher just got a raise because they don't have to pay half of their childcare. The owner just got full tuition and they don't have to discount half, and it's easier to market for teachers. So don't mess with that. However, the industry is moving away from some of the other discounts. So here are two things I want to say. One thing is in your billing system, Don't just record the discounted tuition. Record the full stated tuition and record the discount. That way you can see by discount type and age group what you're actually, quote, giving away. So I'll say it that way. So that's the first thing. You can give away as much as you want. I just want you to be conscious of what it's costing you. We regularly do valuations for the intention of selling and say to someone, did you know you were discounting $120,000 a year because you say you need to hire and give raises? That would go so far. Even if you get half of that back, right? So just know that's the first thing. The second thing is, in the absence of the ability to significantly increase tuition rates, maybe slightly increase and eliminate some discounts that the industry has moved away from. So I'm specific about what those are in the book. I just think it's a good strategy because we bump up against parents' ability to pay, and that's happening everywhere. So I'm mindful and respectful of that. It's tough for parents.
Sure. I love that. I love that, just the hidden dangers of discounts. Sounds great. And definitely go check that out in the book. Kathy, where can people go to find out more about you, find out more about Hinge and the book? Obviously, we'll put everything in the show notes, but tell us where people should go.
Thank you for that. HingeAdvisors.com will get you almost everywhere. You'll see our events and you can get a link to the book there. You can also find the book on Amazon, The 5 Pillars of Purpose-Driven Profit. You can learn more about Boost, our nonprofit, at boostbyhinge.com. And we would love to get aligned, be a resource for whoever. You don't have to be selling your company. We try to make it a mission to support people in their financial health, and we love relationship building way ahead of the actual work that we do. So love for people to get aligned that way.
Kathy, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for writing this book and just for continuing to show up for this industry so many years in. Really appreciate the work that you're doing. So thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate the work you're doing as well to support the community. I love watching it.
Thank you.
We had a client that we worked with, and she was really struggling with profitability. She kept raising tuition. She actually did 3 tuition increases within a 15-month cycle, and she still could not catch up. So I helped her work with our 6 money leaks in schools, and she only used 3 of the 6 money leaks and cut her expenses by 50%. 50. She did not fire anyone. She did not slash any of her programs, and she did not work more hours. Again, the 6 money leaks are not hacks or spreadsheets. These are patterns. They are small decisions that feel so normal that your school does, but they quietly drain your school's profit. So if you've ever wondered why you're working so hard, but still not seeing the return, this is your first step to clarity. Click the link in the show notes and find out what it's actually costing you.